So, where do I even begin? Let me set the scene for you. I'm in my late 20s, living in a small apartment I've worked hard to pay for. It's mine, it's peaceful, and it's the only space where I feel like I'm in control of my life. My family? Well, that's a different story. To give you some context, I grew up in a household where boundaries didn't really exist. My mom was always busy with her own stuff, and my sister, Amy, took up a lot of the space left. We're not exactly close. We never really were. She's always had this way of expecting things from me, things I'm not sure I owe her. You see, I've always been the reliable one, the one who's expected to help out whenever she asks. When I was younger, I didn't really mind. But now, I'm tired. I'm not some kind of unpaid nanny or emotional punching bag for anyone's convenience. This particular incident started about a week ago. Amy called me up one afternoon sounding like she was in a panic. Apparently, her usual babysitter had canceled, and she needed someone to look after her 2 kids on short notice. I wasn't thrilled about it, but I figured, hey, it's family, I can help out. But as she kept talking, I started feeling more and more resentful. She was speaking to me like I didn't have a life of my own. Just a couple of hours, please. You owe me, remember? Owe her. I wasn't sure I did. Sure, I've helped out in the past, but that doesn't mean I'm obligated to drop everything every time she needs something. I told her I couldn't. I said I had plans, that I was busy, but she wouldn't let it go. It felt like she was cornering me, using guilt as her weapon. It's not the first time either. She knows how to push my buttons, and as usual, I started feeling like I had to defend my own time, my own space. But when she threatened to call someone else to help, I just felt drained. I didn't think it would blow up the way it did. But this time, it wasn't just about the babysitting. I refused again, told her I wasn't available and that I needed her to respect that. She was furious, absolutely furious. It was like a switch flipped. She hung up on me and I didn't think much of it. But later that night, something happened that completely shattered my sense of peace. The next morning, I woke up to a barrage of texts. You're selfish. You never care about the family, and the kicker, I'm going to call the cops if you don't help me. At first I thought it was a joke, but no, she was serious. And I didn't understand why she was taking things so far. I could feel the tension in my chest. The kind of pressure that only comes when you know something bad is about to happen. Amy had always been dramatic, but this felt like she'd crossed a line. She wasn't asking for help anymore. She was demanding it. And now, I was in this awful situation, caught between standing up for myself and trying to avoid more chaos than I already had in my life. I could almost hear her voice in my head, the frustration, the control she tried to have over me. The worst part? I still wasn't sure if this was about the babysitting or something deeper. Amy has always been good at hiding her true feelings. And I knew this wasn't just about the kids. It never was. I sat there for a while, staring at my phone, wondering how things had escalated this much. My mind raced. Was I being unreasonable? Maybe I should have just said yes and avoided the fallout, but I knew deep down I couldn't do that. I couldn't let her guilt trip me into doing something I didn't want to do. And then it hit me. If she was willing to call the cops on me over this, what would be the next thing? I'd always been the one who held things together, the one who could handle the pressure. But this felt like the last straw. I couldn't keep playing this role anymore. Not for her, not for anyone. It was only a matter of time before everything blew up, and I had no idea how bad it would get. I didn't sleep that night. It was like my brain was on a loop, running through every possible scenario of what might happen next. Amy was always dramatic, but this felt different. It felt personal. I spent the next day trying to go about my routine, work, errands, trying to clear my head, but Amy's words, her threats, they haunted me. I didn't even know why it had escalated this way. I thought we were past this kind of stuff, but apparently not. Then, late in the afternoon, I got another message from her. It wasn't just the usual guilt trip or passive-aggressive jab. This time, it was a call for backup. Mom's upset with you too. She says you're being unreasonable. I need you to help out. I felt like I'd been slapped across the face. There it was, my mom. For years, she's been the silent partner in every one of Amy's manipulations. It was like she always took her side, no matter what. I've never been the favorite in our family, and I've spent most of my life feeling like I have to prove my worth to them. But this This felt like a betrayal. My mom had never once called me out like this. I mean, she knew how Amy could be. She'd seen it. But she chose her side. She always did. I sat there for a moment, staring at the screen, that sickening feeling of abandonment creeping in. Was it even worth it to fight back anymore? I decided to take a walk, try to clear my head. It wasn't that simple, though. It never is, because every time I walked out of my apartment, I had the constant reminder of why I felt so trapped. The unspoken weight of family expectations, the years of feeling like I wasn't enough unless I was helping, unless I was sacrificing. As I walked down the street, I bumped into an old friend of mine, Sarah. She and I used to hang out when things were a little simpler. We hadn't really kept in touch much after I got caught up in my own mess of family drama, but we always had this kind of connection where it felt like no time had passed. She could tell something was off immediately. "Hey, you okay? You look not like yourself?" I didn't know if I was ready to open up, but for some reason I just couldn't hold it in anymore. I told her everything. The call, the threats, the way Amy always tried to pull me back in, how my mom always sided with her. I let it all spill out, even the stuff I had buried deep. Sarah didn't say much at first. She just listened, but then she looked me in the eyes, and in that moment, I knew she wasn't just hearing my words. She was seeing me. "Katie," she said softly, "you've been doing this for way too long, helping everyone but yourself. Maybe it's time to step back and ask if it's really worth it." I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that Sarah was right. I had been living my life trying to keep everyone else happy, trying to fix things that weren't mine to fix. But what was I left with? A drained, empty version of myself who couldn't even say no without feeling like the world was going to fall apart. After our conversation, I felt a little lighter, but I still had no idea how to handle what was coming next. The feeling of inevitability lingered. It was like the calm before a storm, the heavy silence before everything broke loose. That night, I received the call. It wasn't a surprise, really, but when it came, it still hit me hard. My mom called, her voice tight and strained. She said Amy had already made arrangements for a different babysitter, but that wasn't the problem. The real issue was that Amy had gone ahead and told everyone that I was refusing to help because I was being selfish. And somehow this had turned into a family issue. Everyone was mad at me. I wasn't just the scapegoat anymore. I was the villain in a story I hadn't even wanted to be part of. "Mom, why are you taking her side in this?" I asked, my voice barely controlled. "You know she always does this, and I'm tired of being manipulated into doing things I don't want to do." "I don't want to hear it, Katie. She's upset, and so am I. You need to learn to put the family first for once." That was it. My heart sank, but in that moment, something shifted inside me. I had been playing this game for years, but now I was done. I couldn't keep giving myself away for the sake of a family that would never appreciate it. I told her I couldn't keep doing this, that I couldn't keep letting Amy control my life, and that was the last thing I said before hanging up. The silence afterward was deafening. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, the knot in my stomach tightening. But I felt a strange sense of relief, too. I knew things were about to get worse, but for the first time in ages, I felt like I had taken control. The next few days felt like they were dragging on forever. I had thought that standing up for myself would bring relief, but all it did was stir up more trouble than I ever expected. My mom didn't speak to me for days, which in a way felt like the ultimate punishment. I couldn't even wrap my head around it. How had it come to this? The guilt and resentment I'd been carrying for years seemed to have spilled out all at once, and now I was left with the wreckage of it all. Amy, on the other hand, didn't waste any time. She made sure to let me know how selfish I was every chance she got. At first, it was passive-aggressive texts, like, "I hope you're proud of yourself for letting the kids down." Then, when I didn't respond, it turned into outright hostility. She told all our extended family about the situation, painting me as the villain in this drama. And somehow everyone seemed to buy it. It was like I was a stranger in my own family, watching from the outside as they turned against me. It didn't take long for the messages and calls to flood in. "Katie, you really should have helped Amy. What's wrong with you? You can't just abandon family like that." Every time I read one, it felt like a slap in the face. The most painful part? No one bothered to ask what had happened from my side. No one cared to hear that I had my own life, my own struggles. They just assumed I was the problem. But I wasn't the one in the wrong here. I knew that deep down. I had been pushing myself for years, sacrificing my own happiness, all to keep the peace. And now that I had finally put up a boundary, I was the bad guy. It was messed up, but it was what I had come to expect from this family. The worst part? I still felt like I couldn't fully escape it. There was always this nagging feeling in the back of my mind. The fear that if I didn't keep giving, if I didn't keep showing up for them, I'd lose everyone. I was raised to believe that family was everything, that loyalty and sacrifice were the only things that mattered. So when I drew that line, it felt like I was betraying something sacred. But why did it feel like I was the only one ever making sacrifices? Then it happened. I was sitting in my apartment staring at my phone trying to get work done when I saw the notification, a message from my mom. It wasn't a text this time, but a Facebook post. It was like the entire world knew what had happened. Amy had posted a picture of her kids with a long caption about how some family members just didn't care enough to help out and how sad it was that things had to come to this. And at the end, she tagged me, like some kind of public accusation. I felt my blood boil. That was the moment I realized just how far Amy was willing to go to get her way. It wasn't enough that I told her no. Now she was making a spectacle of it, broadcasting our private conflict to everyone we knew. It felt like a violation, like she had taken everything personal and turned it into a public performance for sympathy. I snapped. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my phone and fired off a message to my mom. "This is insane. I can't believe you're letting Amy do this. Why do you always side with her? What about me? Why does my opinion mean nothing? I'm not your damn punching bag." I stared at the message for a long time before hitting send. Part of me wanted to take it back, but the other part, the part that was so fed up with feeling invisible, just needed to be heard. But then, less than 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was my mom. I didn't answer right away. I needed time to calm down, to figure out how to say what I needed to say without completely losing it. But she kept calling, until finally I picked up. "What do you want, Mom?" I tried to keep my voice steady, but I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me. "Why would you do that?" Her voice was tight, barely contained. "Why would you air our dirty laundry like that? You know what you're doing to this family? You're tearing us apart." "Tearing us apart?" I almost laughed, but it came out bitter. "You've been doing that for years. You never listen to me. You never even try to understand how it feels to be stuck in this family dynamic. It's always about Amy, always about what she needs. But me? I'm just supposed to bend over backward to keep everyone happy. And when I don't, when I finally say no, I'm the bad guy." I could hear her take a deep breath. "Katie, I'm not taking sides, but you've got to understand Amy needs help, and you're her sister. You should want to be there for her." I clenched my jaw. I do want to help her, but not at the expense of my own life. Not anymore. I'm done being the person everyone expects to drop everything. I'm not going to keep sacrificing my happiness for the sake of a family that doesn't even respect me. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. For a moment, I thought she was going to say something that might make me feel heard, but then her voice came back, quieter now, resigned. "I don't know what to tell you, Katie. I'm not sure I can support you if you're going to keep pushing everyone away." That was it, the final nail in the coffin. I knew what she meant. She was choosing Amy. She was always going to choose Amy. And in that moment, something inside me snapped for good. I had always been the one holding the pieces of this broken family together. But now I was done. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind was racing, my heart heavy. For the first time in years, I realized something. I didn't recognize my family anymore. The people I had once sacrificed everything for, the ones I thought I could count on, were no longer those people. I had been so caught up in trying to hold things together that I never stopped to ask myself why it felt like I was always the one paying the price. The next morning, I woke up to more messages, more texts, more Facebook posts, more calls. It was like I was drowning in a sea of judgment, guilt, and anger. It wasn't just Amy anymore. Now my mom, aunts, uncles, even distant cousins were all chiming in, telling me how selfish I was. They made it sound like I had betrayed the entire family by saying no to Amy. I could barely stomach it. The irony was painful. I had spent my whole life saying yes, bending over backward, and now that I'd finally put up a boundary, I was being painted as the villain. I couldn't take it anymore. My phone buzzed again, and this time it was Amy. I almost didn't want to pick up, but I knew I had to. "Hello?" I said, my voice shaking with anger, but I tried to keep it steady. "Are you happy now?" Amy's voice was cold, sharp. "You've ruined everything. You've ruined me. You've made me out to be the bad guy. You know how many people I've had to explain this to? How many people are now thinking I'm some kind of monster?" My chest tightened. "Amy, I didn't ask you to do this. You did this all on your own. I never wanted any of this. I said no because I needed to say no. You can't keep using me like this." "Don't try to act like you're the victim here, Katie," she snapped. "You always think everything revolves around you. You think you're so much better than the rest of us, but you're just as selfish as everyone else. This isn't about babysitting. It's about you trying to make me feel small. You've always done that, and I'm done with it." Her words stung like a slap across the face. I wanted to scream, to tell her everything I had been holding in for years, about how I'd always been expected to put everyone else first, about how I had been pushed to the edge and expected to just take it. But I didn't. Instead, I said something I hadn't expected to say. "I can't keep doing this, Amy. I can't keep being the person who cleans up everyone else's mess. I'm done." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, slow and deliberate, and for a moment I thought maybe, just maybe, she was starting to understand. But then she spoke again, her voice low, venomous. "You're really going to leave me like this? You're going to abandon me after everything? Fine. If that's how it is, then don't come crawling back to me when everything falls apart. I'm done with you." The finality in her words hit me harder than anything else. I felt the floor drop out from under me. Was this really how it was going to end? Was this really the point of no return? I hung up, my hands shaking. The feeling of loss hit me like a freight train, and for the first time, I truly understood the weight of what I had just done. This wasn't just about saying no to babysitting. It wasn't just about one argument. It was the breaking point of years of resentment, years of feeling like I had to sacrifice my life for the sake of family. But at what cost? I sat on the couch, staring at my phone in disbelief. Part of me wanted to reach out, to apologize, to fix everything. But I knew deep down that I couldn't. There was no going back. Amy had made it clear that there was no place for me in her life anymore. And somehow that was more devastating than I had ever imagined. Hours later, my mom called again. She wanted to talk things through, but I couldn't bring myself to pick up. I knew exactly what she was going to say. She was going to ask me to apologize, to make things right, to come back into the fold, but I didn't want to, not anymore. That evening I went for a walk, hoping the fresh air would clear my mind. But all I could think about was the silence that had settled over everything. The silence between me and my family, between me and Amy. The silence that was so loud it almost suffocated me. I didn't know where to go from here. I didn't know if I could ever repair what had been broken. But for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to. I had finally drawn a line in the sand, and as much as it hurt, I knew it was the right thing to do. It's been a few weeks since that call with Amy, and honestly, it still feels like I'm walking through a fog. The family drama, the endless texts, the emotional weight of everything. It hasn't exactly gone away, but I'm learning how to breathe again. The first few days after I cut ties felt like being trapped in a void. My phone didn't stop buzzing with messages from relatives, all echoing the same judgment, the same accusations. My mom tried calling several times, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. What was left to say? The words were all used up, and I knew that nothing I said would change anything. The damage had already been done. I kept to myself. I buried myself in work, focusing on anything that would distract me from the emotional wreckage. But no matter how hard I tried, the guilt kept creeping in. I would lie awake at night, replaying conversations in my head, wondering if I had made the right choice. Was it selfish to stand up for myself? Was I wrong to finally say no after so many years of giving in? But then, something shifted. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly, the weight I had been carrying for so long started to lift. I realized that standing up for myself wasn't selfish. It was necessary. I had spent years putting my needs aside for the sake of family, trying to hold everything together, hoping things would change, but they never did. And as much as it hurt, I had to face the truth. Some people will never change, and some relationships just aren't worth sacrificing your peace for. I haven't heard from Amy in a while. That silence, in a way, is both deafening and relieving. The constant drama, the guilt trips, the endless cycles of manipulation, they're gone. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I have space to breathe, to think, to exist outside of the role that my family expected me to play. And that feels like freedom. I'm not saying it's been easy. There are days when I miss the connection, when I wonder what could have been if things had been different. I think about Amy and the kids, and I wish things hadn't gone this way. I wish I could have been the sister she needed, the daughter my mom wanted. But then I remember the way Amy used to manipulate me, the way my mom would always side with her no matter what. I remember the sacrifices I made, the way my boundaries were trampled over and over again. And I know deep down, I made the right choice. The hardest part is realizing that some relationships aren't meant to be fixed. No matter how much you love someone, sometimes you have to let them go. And that's something I'm still learning to accept. I spent a lot of time talking to my friends in the past few weeks. Sarah, especially, has been a huge support. She's been through her own share of family drama, and she gets it. She reminds me that I'm not alone in this, that sometimes we have to choose ourselves, even if it means walking away from the people we love. It's been a hard pill to swallow, but it's also been the most freeing thing I've ever done. There's a part of me that still feels that knot in my stomach when I think about my mom, about Amy, but I'm learning to sit with that discomfort, to realize that I'm not responsible for their happiness, and they're not responsible for mine. I've spent so long trying to fix things that were never mine to fix, and now I'm learning to focus on what's mine, my own life, my own happiness, my own peace of mind. It's not perfect, and it probably never will be, but I'm learning to let go of the guilt, the shame, and the expectations that I've been carrying for so long. I'm learning that it's okay to put myself first, even when it feels like the world is telling me I shouldn't. And maybe, just maybe, I'll find my way back to peace. Not just with my family, but with my self-story too. It's time to raise a chair. In the lounge today, we have another fantastic story for you. We're all searching for change sometimes. However, that shift occurs when you move to a new location and make all the changes. Figures, electronics, addresses. Today in the R Lounge, it's similar to witness protection and validation. Sometimes rebuilding something better requires a full-scale explosion. My 60-year-old mother wanted to compel my sister, 32, and I, 35, to get back together. However, it backfired. I'm not sure if I still want her in my life. Background. At the age of 16, I began dating my brother's closest friend. He proposed to me and I turned him down, but we remained together until I graduated from high school. There was a lot of drama when my family asked me to change my mind since we may get engaged for a long time or pledge to patch things up with my brother. The one with my sister, 32, never recovered, although 36 struggled for a time. When she began dating my ex's brother, she became intolerable since she was certain that my ex was the greatest person for me. My siblings welcomed my ex everywhere, including to certain family gatherings, but because he was also their buddy, I remained silent. That is, until my sister began to insist that we reconcile. From forcing us to share a room over the holidays to attempting to arrange blind dates, my sister did it all. My ex was invited to every event, no matter what. I eventually got tired of it and urged my parents to step in. They stopped bringing my ex to events and letting him accompany them too frequently after being upfront with my siblings. It was marginally better, but my sister didn't back off, even when my brother did. When I met my spouse while studying abroad for a semester, everything fell apart. We clicked even though he attended a different institution in the same nation. After a year of dating, it was amazing for me, and we became engaged. With the exception of my sister, my family was overjoyed for me. She said that I was still in the honeymoon stage and would eventually grow out of it. Obviously, I didn't. The number of arguments and tries to bring me back together with my ex is indescribable. I only informed her if she pulled anything else. I'll cut all communication with her. After receiving the warning, what does she do? She asks me to be her maid of honor. My ex, also known as the bridal party, is with me all the time. Additionally, my spouse went on a date with one of her buddies. It wasn't until we arrived at the reception that we realized. Additionally, the poor girl attempted to approach my husband. According to my sister, it was acceptable to try things with other people because we are not married. After leaving the party, I talked to my brother and parents the next day and told them that, although I won't force them to pick, I would never again speak to my sister. And I'll just stop communicating with them if they attempt to mend our differences. My dad and brother claimed they would accept my choice, but my mom was distraught and sought to compromise. In addition, I haven't written, talked, or done anything with my sister in the last 6 years, with the exception of 2 efforts by my mother. From presents to tantrums, my sister has tried everything to make amends with me, but I just don't communicate with her. I just pretend she doesn't exist if we're at a meal or family gathering. She first tried to stir up drama or make snide remarks, but someone eventually supported her. She gave up. When she was told she was invited to my wedding but would not be helping with any preparations, she did have a breakdown. My brother claims that he feels bad about continuing to have a relationship with my ex for so long. Has suffered since my former partner. Though they are no longer as close, they still communicate. The problem? A few weeks ago was my mom's birthday, and I finally made the announcement that we are expecting her first child. This is the first granddaughter, but not the first grandchild. Except for my sister, everyone was extremely happy. The other day my mother asked me for tea after noticing that. I wanted to be optimistic even though my 6th sense told me not to go. When I got there, my sister's car was the first thing I saw. My sister, her husband, my ex, and my former mother-in-law were waiting for me when I walked through the door. They desired an intervention since my kid. This tactic has gone for so long. My ex said that he was just trying to be romantic, but he understands. I couldn't appreciate it. His mom said I was just hurting my sister for wanting the best for me, and she apologized already. So I need to forgive her. I was just sending texts to my family, dad, brother, husband, and looking at my mom in disbelief. My brother-in-law had the balls to tell me I was a hurtful person, and I need to learn how to act like an adult since I'm having a baby now. Then my mom began reading a letter about how hurt she was. Her daughters weren't close, how my sister was wrong, but she was well-intended, etc. And my sister read her letter and began crying and telling me basically another version of what the rest did. I said nothing to anybody. I just sat there until my brother arrived. He was angry beyond anything I've ever seen before. He grabbed my stuff and told them all. He was really disappointed and disgusted. We walked outside and waited in his car until my parents and husband arrived. By then I was simply bawling and he kept repeating sorry. I'm uncertain what occurred in there, but I wrote everybody except Mom an email with my lawyer's number details attached and stated, I don't intend to be bothered by any of them ever again, and if they do, I will go to the police. Nobody has contacted me, but I know that my dad, my mom, and sister are hysterical. They told him they hope to fix things, and for my sister to be able to be in my baby's life, maybe perhaps becoming a godmother to my dad and remaining with my brother. At the time they support me, however, some others in the family V even had common acquaintances phone me since they are worried about my sister's well-being and asked me what occurred. Since she is now going by the narrative, my husband is keeping me away from my family. I dislike having my business in public, but I did go to the public route and created a big Facebook post detailing everything that transpired. Sister, brother-in-law, and ex are being dragged, which even if it wasn't 100% planned, I feel is warranted. Now my mom has been inconsolable, which does make me feel horrible, but not as bad as she made me feel with her little intervention. I truly have a conversation with her a few days ago and lay the ground rules for any possible future interaction, including treatment. Family therapy, clear borders, no exchanging information about me with my sister, and separate holidays. Most importantly, she will undoubtedly be cut off if she ever does something similar again. Despite her feelings that this is excessive, she will proceed. She believed that everything would be resolved and she would have instant access to baby news. However, I informed her that it is a process and that she must demonstrate her progress. My brother and father would not speak to my sister, and they constantly apologized for not intervening sooner. Since they were able to go on and develop, we have forgiven them. My mother-in-law isn't sure, but my hubby is on board with whatever I pick. While denying my mom access to her grandchild is the best course of action, she asserts that it is ultimately up to me. I quote, am not sure what to do with my mother. Because of my sister's infatuation with me and my ex, I haven't spoken to her in 6 years. In order for us to get back together, my mom planned an intervention on her behalf, and now I'm not sure whether I want her in my life at all. Let's see if there are any comments from the community. First of all, given your pregnancy, what is their reasoning? You should recognize that your happily ever after is with your ex and quit pretending to be your husband. How is your infant doing? She will be accepted by your former partner and his family. In her candid responses, my sister says she no longer wants to be with me, but that I cannot deny her the opportunity to be an aunt. To be close to my sister-in-law, who is an incredible person. She claims that I am a horrible sister. It's clear that I don't trust her. What to do with my mother is my problem. The commentator adds their voice. If she didn't date your ex, she couldn't be your best friend. I wish I could tell you, but I have no idea what her thought process is. The original poster responds, according to my spouse, she is simply mentally ill. The ex. He still retains the mixtapes and CDs I created for him while we were dating, which is the most absurd and frightening thing. He still has such items, which were almost 20 years old. The commentator adds their voice. I'm a little shocked that your ex stalked you. Yes, I will give him a call. Your brother is still dealing with that. Still, don't back down from your mother. No deadlines. She must in order to follow your guidelines. The OP goes on to say that sister must deal with the fallout from her actions, for my brother's sake. He did begin to interrupt him. I told my folks that I felt really uneasy having my ex around all the time. During my breaks, I would visit my family even though I was living away for college. Additionally, he went to great lengths to make my husband feel at home, which further soured his relationship with my ex since he felt deceived by my brother. These days, my spouse exclusively talks to my ex and is one of my brother's best friends. One concerns our nephew. Or to avoid being impolite. Another community member believes you should understand that your mother is behind all of this. Big Sis is continuing this in large part because she knows your mother agrees with her. The OP returns with that, which saddens me much because my mom was always very kind to my spouse, and I'm now reconsidering their entire relationship. They quote Repees, culture and background. Not from India, not coming from a religious household. My folks were kind, decent people. They initially believed it to be romantic, but they eventually came to the conclusion that it wasn't. They urged me to enroll in college and all that. I now realize that my mom may have simply played along and shared my sister's opinions, but my dad genuinely stood for me. My sister thought we might be married brothers and closest friends. To be honest, it seems like your sister is living in another universe where your choices are meaningless and your ex is the only person in the world. Your mother setting up the intervention was the icing on the cake. Bravo to your brother and father for taking charge and helping you. It appears like your mother is now beginning to understand that mediating this situation isn't the best course of action. By establishing clear limits and forcing her to regain your trust, you're on the right way. She must realize that this is a long-term commitment to honoring your decisions and your new family, not a temporary solution. 16 hours after the first article was removed, an update explanation post was made the same day. I intended to post the modification but was unable to do so. I want to express my gratitude for all of your help and guidance thus far. Since there are too many comments for me to address them all individually, I would want to provide a bit additional information. When I was 18, I broke up with my ex. He is currently 37. My refusal to get married or engaged was the cause of our separation. My sister's obsession with wanting us to be best friends and marry brothers is the reason for her demand. I'm starting to believe that my mom's kindness for my spouse has always been a front. It saddens me greatly. Since the split, my ex has started seeing other people. He has never been married, however he does have 2 children from a previous relationship. Since he has only ever desired to marry me, my sister feels that is a really romantic thing to do. It's important to note that his compulsive behavior extends beyond myself. According to rumors, he was quite similar to the mother of his kids, but he is now focusing on me, since my sister is pushing for it because she needs his assistance. In order for her to be a decent aunt, I'm restoring my favor. When I informed my parents that I felt quite uneasy having my ex around all the time, my brother did begin to cut him off. During my breaks, I would visit my family even though I was living away for college. Additionally, he went to great lengths to make my husband feel at home, which further soured his relationship with my ex since he felt deceived by my brother. My spouse is currently one of my brother's best friends, and the only one I spend time with while discussing our nephew, my sister's son, with my ex, or to avoid being impolite. My dad was the only one who seemed to agree with me that I shouldn't spend too much time with my ex, but both of my parents appear to embrace that idea. On the day of the tea party, my mother informed him that she would be preparing my favorite tea and desserts, but he was not allowed to remain because we would be spending time together. My dad felt it was a wonderful gesture for my mom, so he went to hang out with my uncle. He is really angry. When they first met, my husband made a lot of effort to get to know my sister, but now he ignores her and thinks she is mentally and physically well. Whether she is or not is unknown to us. However, there is no justification for her actions. They believed it would be beneficial for me to confront the source of my problems with my sister, so they brought the ex-boyfriend's mother. Or is their official version anyhow. We're not Indian, and we're not very religious. I'm from the same race as my hubby. Additionally, there is no difference in money between my spouse and my ex. It would be in my husband's benefit if there were. Finally, my brother's wife and my husband's sister are furious about the situation, as is my sister-in-law. My spouse and his sisters will discuss her remark with their mother. My brother and his spouse are thinking about completely cutting off all communication with my mother. They will prevent her from seeing my nephews for a time in the interim. As I read more, I fear that I may have to leave. No communication with my mother for the benefit of my child. Though he believes he is even more incensed, my husband is devastated to believe that all of their conversations were staged. She caused me to cry and question my moral character. I understand that I still need to talk to my family about my mother many times, but I will undoubtedly get a restraining order against my sister and the ex. The Sunday update, that's right, the current status of my family. My mother and I spoke, but she maintains that she was the expert. She will have custody or perhaps grandparents' rights since I am a nasty person. I worried even though I don't trust a word she says. So we wrote to her about it. My father left home. Of course. He informed her he could not sign off on her frightening his child. My brother and his spouse made the decision to go as well. No interaction. Although it may seem abrupt, I believe I underestimated how hopeless I felt following the intervention. After that, my husband advised them to be thoughtful about their values and to be open to everything, but he would not raise a child in a poisonous atmosphere. 3,271,637 is the reason. The reasons behind my affection for my spouse. Because of my mother's deceit, my spouse is devastated. He claims that he will never give her anything. This is the extent of retaliation. My mother-in-law's statement was discussed with my husband and sisters, who helped her see how inappropriate it was. She comes from a nice family and is a very caring mother, as many of you imagine. My brother and dad are always expressing regret for whatever part they may have played in this. My dad is shocked that things has come to this stage. He said that it still seems unreal to him. In any case, they stand by me no matter what and promise to assist me through whatever absurd battle my mother or sister throws at me. Why is your mother threatening to obtain custody or grandparents' rights while planning an intervention to bring you back together with your ex? Oh no. However, your in-law's response was excellent. At least your husband is gathering the troops to explain why some of the remarks were inappropriate, and you have some reasonable, encouraging people on your side. He's a keeper. The second update was made a little more than a week later. The last update. I'm hoping it is. Note from the editor that this is not the final version. I want to express my gratitude for the kind remarks and supportive texts. In order to prevent it from being removed like the original, I choose to put it here. I'm trying to be optimistic about everything, even if things are both fantastic and awful at the same time. Grandma was sick and attempted to harm Auntie Diamond, and the younger cousin, my brother and his wife, recounted to my nephews as they sat them down. They clarified that even though their grandmother would no longer be involved in their life, she still loved them. It was rather difficult. However, the children are intelligent. Additionally, they were informed that their other aunt had left them, but they don't care because they don't like her. Not because I am the only one, but just because she isn't very good with them. After being told, my mother went crazy and began asserting her rights, including the right to visit her grandkids. My dad will remain with us until January while he searches for a permanent residence, mostly because we have the space and my brother's mother-in-law is coming to visit. He is rather depressed, has already shifted bank items, contacted divorce attorneys, etc. My mom has been sending him a ton of emails, texts, and phone calls, but he never responds. The attorney advised him not to block her at this time. He thought about perhaps forgiving her, but she chose to visit my house with my sister a few days after my previous post here, which caused my blood pressure to skyrocket. My sister had never visited my house before. I suppose it doesn't matter anymore that my mother knew I didn't want her there. Since she knows my mom and I haven't had chance to tell her, the cleaning lady let them in. She was no longer permitted entry. I observed the automobile as I was leaving some errands. I didn't get in this time. I dialed all of my family members, including my sister-in-law, spouse, and sister. Was the person nearest to me. She challenged them and threatened to call the police for trespassing unless they left. After they departed, I began to feel guilty. We visited the physician. All the enthusiasm was bad, they told me. I had to start unwinding, or the baby would suffer. My dad took everything he could think of and brought it home with my brother, uncle, and spouse. According to my spouse, my sister was also present and yelled at him, accusing him of ruining her family. However, I informed my mother and sister that they nearly killed the child. Additionally, he has no intention of speaking to any of them ever again. My sister has been pleading with my brother via SMS, but nothing is happening. Since my nephew is losing so many members of his family due to his mother's crazy beliefs, I am heartbroken and extremely sorry for him. But it is what it is. Regarding the rights of grandparents and custody, my mother wishes to discuss these topics extensively. According to a letter my lawyer wrote her, she harmed both my health and the health of the unborn child. If she continues to harass me, it will be taken to court. Using her harassment of me, my brother also wrote her a letter. Mom and sister have both declined to attend treatment. It is clear from all of this that they have been in accord for a long time, even though they may be mentally sick. I quote, "LL prioritize going to treatment, being well, and celebrating the holidays with my family." 3 months later, the third update. I'm grateful, Reddit community. Hello. I thought it would be a good match because I had some time and had gotten several requests for an update. I want to express my sincere gratitude for all of your letters, comments, and suggestions because I believe we owe you for being even more worried than we already were. I get asked by a few folks how we determined the baby's gender. After 20 weeks, I make the announcement. We waited so long because we had already suffered a loss, which we were getting ready to share at the time, and we wanted to be certain and feel secure about the announcement. We were also gullible enough to believe it would be a memorable occasion for my mother. You quote, "Recorrect too." My husband read your messages, comments, and suggestions for a few days after I gave it to him after I posted. Fortunately, we discovered nothing when we swept the house, but we still felt quite uneasy. So my dad and I went to a motel. However, we later discovered that my fur baby's vest had a tracker on it. Being a little dog, he frequently feels chilly. He is wearing an amusing vest. I have never in a million years considered looking there. But when my sister arrived and questioned him about me and my reconciliation, and my dad took him around the hotel area, we found the tracker. We chose to move since I was so sad. Fortunately, it's within our budget. In order to keep it from being completely vacant, we are now renting as well as renting out our space. I think the house is somehow wrecked and polluted, even if I used to adore it. Unfortunately, not only for me, my parents' house has the same vibe. In addition to my husband's family, we are all brothers, husbands, fathers, and sisters-in-law. We obtained new equipment, changed our phone numbers, and informed the police, friends, and employment. We also began family treatment and individual therapy. Even if I have really provided them, My brother and dad feel a great deal of shame over the circumstance. But collectively, we are recovering. My mother and sister maintain that they are correct and do not require counseling. However, Dad established a new regulation wherein my sister's son receives a trust fund and a portion of the inheritance, while my sister receives a little sum. He really has had enough of her. Despite my sympathy for her, I chose to concentrate on my child. We are fortunate that she is here. Since my mother is no longer with me, it's not the experience I had anticipated, but a lot of friends and relatives have really surprised us. We began testing certain folks because we were so worried at the end. We weren't sure whether to inform them that I was about to go into labor. It operated flawlessly. We identified and removed the person who was still providing my mother and sister with information. The others comprehended, and we clarified the logic. We've been having a tumultuous affair, so my ex, who my friends now nicknamed Bates, went around claiming the kid was his, because I will always adore him. My husband called Bates's job and told him about the madness, but no one believes him anymore. In summary, he was placed on suspension while an internal review was conducted. They have been asking for more and more information, and they seem really sorry, so I am very sure he will be dismissed. My mother has made every effort to locate us, but everyone who is aware of our whereabouts has contacted her. However, she received a letter from her lawyer informing her that all contact would now be handled by attorneys because she was deemed inappropriate. Right now, my dad and I have been together since I felt terrible for him being by himself. He has assured me that everything is my fault and that he will be well. I still feel terrible though. He has been the world's greatest diaper changer and babysitter feeding. As usual, my nephews are affectionate, and my dad even had a visit from my sister's kid. It happened because my husband continued to distance himself from her family, and she continued to make recordings in which she threatened to harm herself. In light of her threats, my dad promised to notify the police and sent her an email regarding visiting her son. That appears to be over now. Finally, someone mentioned, I misled Bates into believing. Nothing could be further from the truth than me. I assumed he would move on, so I was uncomfortable for years. I then spent a lot of time arguing with my sister over it after I raised my voice and they met my spouse. I married him after my sister since we were engaged for a very long time. Even though I still adore my mother and sister, I put my family's health before that affection. This whole experience has taught me a lot about compassion, love, and loyalty. It may seem odd, but I'm glad everything blew up. I hope it doesn't ramble too much. Hugs from me. Fortunately, the grandmother was tackled by your brother and his spouse. A crazy conversation with the children. There has to be someone, as well as your sister, unexpectedly visiting your home and bringing your mother along. That is really bold. It's unsettling and incredibly persistent that your mother is still trying to locate you, despite being cut off by everyone who knows where you are. I don't like it because it makes me shiver. In addition, your stalker has changed his name to Bates. How appropriate. It's wonderful to learn that your dad has stepped up to be the finest babysitter in the world amongst all of this stress. Post 4 update. 6 from OG posted a brief Bates update 3 months later. Hello Reddit. With my dad relocating into the guest house, we formally moved into a new home. After much debate, both within and outside of treatment, we came to the conclusion that, even though it would be beneficial for him to stay with us, we all still need our privacy. The former location is still rented out, and we will be cleaning. What to do thereafter? My dad still had to see my sister's children individually since she wouldn't allow him take them until she knew where they lived, even though he now gets to see the grandkids together around 3 times a week. It is a regular thing, to be fair. We don't want her close though, since she is insane. My mother brought up the unfairness of it with attorneys. There is nothing she can do to stop my dad from seeing all of the grandchildren. My stomach began to ache about a month ago when my dad informed me he had a confession. Dear reader, my nephew's sister has permitted him to see him because he pays for his children's education and daycare. He didn't want to keep secrets and felt terrible for keeping it a secret. I reassured him that everything was okay and that he shouldn't feel guilty. My dad received an email on Mother's Day that included a link to an Instagram account that had a depressing video about my mom, how most of her family has abandoned her, and how amazing my sister is for supporting her. I was furious and found it really pitiful, but I just forwarded it to the attorney. In May, Dad formally filed for divorce, and the proceedings are still in progress. My dad stated that he would sooner drink bleach than return to her, so I believe that to be genuine, even if my mom is adamant that he is mistaken. On Father's Day, my brother and hubby had a great day taking my dad out. We wanted my dad to enjoy it, so even though my sister uploaded a ton of stuff that day, they were able to keep him from knowing about it. They also took the kids on a camping vacation, which is another name for going to a hotel. They set up a tent for the kids and a little teepee for the baby in the middle of the space. To be honest, having a child is one of the finest things I have ever experienced, and I am thrilled to see my husband becoming the wonderful parent I knew he would be. Although it is exhausting, we have a lot of support. I am really thankful that I have my rocks on my side. I now get to share things on a little calendar with my sister in Law. Every child has access to age-appropriate activities, and we want them to understand that their opinions count and that they don't have to spend their time with individuals they don't like. They are all completely enamored with the baby right now and claim to be her protectors. We have breakfast, little get-togethers, and other activities, and to be honest, spending time with the family is now enjoyable rather than stressful without my sister around. She simply saps the positive energy from the room, even though I know it's inappropriate to say this. About once a week, my mother-in-law stays in the guest room since she enjoys spending time with the infant. "I don't want to take the baby for sleepovers or anything," she responded nicely when she asked. She makes me feel heard and valued, and sure, I have cried occasionally because I miss my mother so much. I miss what I had, or believed I had, the one who was cruel or who warned me I would make a bad mother. It's a marathon, according to my therapist, so concentrate on the positive. The conversation about enjoyable dates came to an end. Furthermore, his industrial reputation was not only tarnished, but severely tarnished. His brothers were too. However, as far as I know, my brother-in-law is still employed since he works in a field that does not place as much value on reputation. They gave me a 12-page letter about his injured feelings that was single-spaced and double-sided. My husband feels so threatened by him that he had to go and professionally ruin him because I am denying him what is rightfully his. It seems that I didn't read what I said, so he couldn't demolish anything more. I said. My lawyer completed it and sent me with a synopsis. I don't ask people, but I also heard it through the grapevine. Since they are aware that he's stalking me, they just tell me that his children's mother relocated and that he didn't give a damn, claiming it was for the best. This man wants to play family with me and the baby, and he doesn't even give a damn about his children. I doubt he will learn anything from this, but it's sad that he won't be homeless or anything because his mother has already allowed him to come back in with her. That's hardly the most dazzling update, but that's what it is. Oh, and with my dad's okay. My husband burnt or donated every single item that my mom or my parents had given him. Even with memories, he claims that life is too short to allow her a place in it. Let S make another check-in with the community. First of all, I'm very happy that you're surviving all of that with your family's positive aspects still intact. The firing aspect doesn't really make sense to me. Although I understand that Bates is a nasty guy, has he ever done anything that is related to or relevant to his work? The OP responds without abandoning his business. It's a very intimate one, and a negative reputation may ruin you. Prior to this, he was seen as a kind but aloof feminist single father. He even claimed that I had been with him for a longer period of time than we actually did. Someone else contributes to the discussion. At 1:30 a.m., I'm reading your entire article for the best of Reddit, Opie. From my home in India, and I hope your kid grows up to be as healthy and kind as you two. I also admire you and apologize for what you went through. In addition, I hope that this whole situation ends quickly so that you may return to your mother once X fantasy is done. I respect you for continuing to fight, the OP responds. I will never speak to my mother again, even if that is a beautiful sentiment. I really do miss her. I weep a lot. She's not who I believed her to be. And the infant is entitled to the greatest family possible. My mother isn't involved either. My heart is broken, but I have to keep the baby safe. Are you posting the OP comments on the second bio? Someone informed me that although the sub was full of kind individuals, There were also a lot of sarcastic ones when I went to look at the comments. I won't reveal more personal information, but my husband called their company because Bates is meant to deal with vulnerable individuals. Regarding the financial issue, I never imagined that he would suffer because of money, but he would also never learn anything. After all, we all come from wealthy families. Opie, congrats on your new home and your dad's guest house. However, it's fantastic that your dad is stepping up to be a terrific grandfather. Without knowing where he resides, your sister is unwilling to allow him to take her child. Without being harsh, his classic crazy in your arms protested to her lawyer. Bravo to your spouse for getting rid of all the harmful mementos from your mother. And save me the little violin. He correct. Life is too brief to cling to such things. 2 years later, a new update post. For us, there is yet hope. I read it. It's been a while. I want to thank everyone for their letters and remarks before I share any developments with you. I'm inundated with generally good messages every time I come onto this account, and I really appreciate it. There are mostly nice updates for those who want them. However, I'm not sure whether anyone will read this. Now that we've cleared that up, let's begin. My parents are no longer together. After my mother's numerous arguments and outbursts, she received a lump sum settlement and kept the house. That's all, though. We were all thrilled for my dad since he has changed completely. A little flashback to the time of all the turmoil. Our housekeeper was not let go. This woman had been providing decades of support to my husband's family, and I was quite anxious about her losing her job as a result of my eccentric family's actions. Furthermore, she is not scrubbing floors on her knees or doing anything similar, and we are not slobs. In any event, my dad talked to her and informed her that she was not fired at all, but that she was on paid vacation till we moved and could wait for us if she wanted to. She and her family were ecstatic about it. They were so appreciative of what my dad was doing for them that he began occasionally getting food and other items from them. My dad is currently dating her sister, who has her own nail business. Being a beautiful lady with adult children, she is aware of the dynamics that might arise. She is happy that he has made it obvious that he will not be moving or getting married since she values her freedom. When my mother learned about his new connection, she almost had a stroke. She insisted that he had to become a sugar daddy since it was a late midlife crisis. Since I don't communicate with her, this is clearly what I heard. But the last I heard, she was going through a difficult period. She depended on my dad to dissuade her from making extravagant purchases because she was never excellent at budgeting. Due to my dad's decision to stop providing financial support, my sister is now having difficulties. As you can see, he was prepared to continue lending a hand for my nephew. However, when my nephew began accusing my child of having an affair, things became quite difficult. Baby, she is not with a genuine father. She called my other nephews crazy and even shoved one of them on my husband's side at a birthday celebration, claiming that only he was my children's cousin. The children notified an adult about it right away, despite their confusion and perplexity. However, he kept saying that even after I had spoken to him. My sister told him that there was nothing she could do to stop a child from speaking the truth. And didn't every child always speak the truth? He informed her that he would cut them off unless anything changed. She sobbed in terror. However, she is also quite obstinate. Due to my spouse forcing my dad to cut them off base, my nephew is now enrolled in a public school. He still doesn't have a job, though. I apologize for being vague, but he worked in a field that involved vulnerable women and some stalking. Irony. A lot? He was sacked for that reason. His organization did not want to be associated with this. Since he only knows my lawyer's address, he has sent me 2 additional lengthy, handwritten, meandering letters. Guess who gets to listen to, read, and archive his digressions? My lawyer is fantastic, and I adore him. I have only had one negative experience with him, other from that and the rumors. A stranger approached me in the grocery store and inquired whether my child was Bates's child. I was stunned and unable to speak. She told me that he had a picture of us on his page and that I should feel bad for hurting such a kind man when I asked her what she was on. As it happens, he continues to use the story. He is my child, and I adored him. All of that is outdated information. What surprised me the most, though, was the picture comment at the conclusion. This picture has never been made public or anything. It has only been sent to a family group once. My spouse was furious yet calm when I informed him right away. Smoking out the rat was our decision. In summary, my mom was receiving information from my dad's two sisters. Despite his disappointment, my dad was hesitant to cut them off. They are still pleading with him to speak with them once more. My brother is doing quite well, as is his family. Since the last update, we have had various family vacations and visit them frequently. Additionally, there is no communication with my mother or sister. As it turns out, my sister-in-law did not like our mother, but she managed to keep the peace, so she is now really thrilled about it. My in-laws continue to be very kind. Our mother-in-law is thrilled that we now let her watch the kids overnight. She occasionally hosts all of her grandkids in one place, and they all love spending time with her. Their favorite activity is pretending to be airplanes because she used to be a flight attendant. All in all, they adore her, and we don't have to worry since we know she gets along well with our children. My mom continued stalking her, so she had to make her social media accounts private. She created her own bed, but I can imagine how envious she feels. Last but not least, my hubby helps me stay sane when little issues arise. We're debating whether to adopt a child or have another child. We haven't made a decision yet. We are fortunate to have these discussions and have an excellent network of support. My mother is still very much missed. Although she is a horrible person and my family's safety comes first, I still weep occasionally when I realize there are milestones I can no longer enjoy with her. The most entertaining fact is that they went camping on Father's Day. It was a huge success, aside from a few poorly placed sunburns and insect bites. Requesting a paternity test report might be a simple way to get information from the community. The picture, a paternity test has already been completed. With my spouse, not with Bates. Naturally, we never had any doubts, but my lawyer advised getting it done just in case he claimed it. We previously removed the photo from his Facebook profile after the event a while ago. I don't want to see him again, therefore I didn't want to continue. Let's start by giving your dad a huge high five. He has obviously benefited greatly from his divorce. Hey, sign me up if you're having a hard time dating a beautiful, independent lady who owns a nail shop. It seems like your mother and your sister are learning a valuable lesson about financial independence. Additionally, Bates is insane and jobless. I am forwarding his manifesto link mails to you. Bravo to your attorney for handling that problem. I appreciate the update, Opie. Your humor and tenacity are really admirable. Cheers to better times to come. How do you interpret this? Thank you for visiting us in your lounge today, and please share your views with us in the comments section below. To ensure you don't miss our next video, please press the notification bell, like, and subscribe. See you shortly.